Good morning and welcome into the show. It is Daniel Wortman coming to you live from the Dream Imaginate Sports Studios. It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 5 a.m. super early morning wake-up call out west. And all time zones in between and around the world. Thanks for watching and listening. As always, we really do appreciate it. It is Monday, the week of the U.S. Soccer AGM coming up. This week in Nashville, Tennessee, it begins Thursday, runs into the weekend. Stay tuned at Daniel Workman on Twitter, at Daniel Workman on Instagram. We'll be posting updates. It's always a time I meet up with a lot of friends who are working within U.S. Soccer and pick their brains as well, try to get some interviews as well. So look forward to that. I'll be in Nashville later this week, looking, covering, talking, listening at the U.S. Soccer AGM. The U.S. women's national team yesterday beat Canada to win their Olympic qualifier tourney and qualify for the Olympics. No one is surprised at that. Fortunately, on the women's side of the ledger, they are pretty consistent in doing what they're supposed to do, and in CONCACAF, that is qualifying for the tournaments. Beyond that, we obviously expect more success on the women's side than we do the men's side when it comes to actual tournaments. But definitely in terms of qualifying, both the men's and women's should be qualifying out of CONCACAF at the very least. And the U.S. women's national team again showed the men how it's done, qualifying for the Olympics in Japan this summer. One thing we haven't really talked a lot about, I believe when we had Tom Byer on the show previously, he mentioned this, that the men's and women's national team programs in Japan, even more than the men's and women's World Cup of 2018 and 19, respectively, have been focused on having a very strong showing at the Summer Olympics because it's on home soil. National pride and this sense of obligation to perform. All attention has been put on those two teams, the Japanese men's and the Japanese women's national teams, to have a very good showing at the Summer Olympics this summer. So we know that Japan is going to be there to put up a fight. They were the finalists in 2015 in Canada, and they have been, historically pretty good over the last 10 years. And all signs point to them competing very hard and very well this summer. And that'll be another test for our women's national team program. They've been able to put together 2 consecutive World Cups, and that is the first time they've been able to do that is to go back to back. They finally were able to do that. Can they carry this success under a new coach into the World Cup in Japan? We will see. Right now, it looks like the coach is still tinkering and looking at some different things and looking at different players, even during this tournament. And that's to be expected. So we'll see how things shape up as we get closer to the Summer Olympics, how things come together for the women's national team. The men's national team, Olympic program and Olympic team are not through qualifying yet, so we will see. We will see how that goes, and we know we at least have the women to root for in the Olympics. The men have not made the last 2 Olympics. Will it be a third? We don't know. and so that's where everyone is, has their eyes. What are we looking at there? Yesterday in Milan, there was a big Serie A derby, 4-2 Inter over AC Milan. Inter down in the match, producing a stunning comeback to win the Milan derby 4-2. That was the first half was okay. Second half from Inter was just really, really good stuff. Other places, this is the first time that the Premier League in England have actually taken a winter break. Now, if you turn on your television this weekend, telly, as they say in other parts of the world, you would have seen that there were still Premier League matches on TV. And that's because what they did is they basically split what would have been one round of fixtures into a Part A and a Part B, and they're giving Part B's fixtures got last week off as a winter break. Part A fixtures gets this week off as their winter break, and this is the first time the Premier League's even tried something like a winter break. I expect that the clubs are going to really like this. What is baffling to me is why we're doing it now and not closer to the new year. I understand the tradition. There are a lot of things in sports that are about tradition. A lot of things in sports. And so I understand that in England, Boxing Day and New Year's Day matches and the run of fixtures through the holidays, a lot of leagues, go on hiatus. All eyes are on the Premier League. They feel like it's a window that they don't want to give up in terms of viewing audience around the world. And then obviously locally, they enjoy the fixtures and having that run of fixtures and the holidays, and families look forward to those times and going out and watching the matches. And I understand all that. And so anyone who's like, they should end all that and just do what everybody else does, I can understand why those within the English FA, those within the Premier League, the clubs themselves, the players, why the tradition remains. And quite frankly, if I was running the Premier League, I wouldn't want to change that aspect of it completely. I would tweak a couple things here and there within the window in terms of the frequency of matches and being a little bit smarter with the scheduling there. But I would still keep a pretty congested fixture list there and use it in the same way it's being used now to promote the league. You're basically got a captive audience around the world watching the league during that time because everyone else is off. What I would do, though, is not wait till February to do this partial winter break schedule. I would actually probably do it in early January. Right after maybe that FA Cup weekend, you go into that partial right there and do it in January. And who knows, maybe they will do that going forward. I think it would be, closer to a time where the players and the clubs would, need the recovery, and not to say that they're not appreciating it now, but I think 3 or 4 weeks ago probably would have been better timing. So who knows, but I'm glad that they're doing it because the players do need, they do need the ability to get some rest. It's a long season, a lot of fixtures. And if you're a club like, Liverpool fighting Manchester City, fighting on a couple fronts here or more than 2 fronts, you're appreciating the rest for your squad and for your first team as well. So, that's an issue that played out this weekend, first time ever for a Premier League break, and I think it went fine. There weren't a ton of fixtures on TV, but there was enough. Still filled the calendar, and then obviously next weekend there will be more, and then they'll be in full strength the week after this. Also yesterday, Barcelona knocking off Real Betis away at Real Betis. It was an interesting match, to say the least. When these two teams get together, they both play with the same mentality of Johan Cruyff, in that he would rather win a game 4-3 than he would have 1-0. And so 3-2 could have been more goals for both sides. Thought the referee was not very good in the match. But nevertheless, Barcelona off of 3 assists from Messi, two free kick assists, and then in the run of play, a beautiful ball over the back line, dropping in on a great run from Frankie de Jong, who brings it down off his chest with a little chest volley into the back of the net to tie the match 1-1, and then they would go on to win 3-2. And I thought Messi had a penalty claim. I think Arturo Vidal had Arthur had a penalty claim as well. Neither were called. Real Betis actually did get a penalty called earlier in the match, but it was a good match. It was an interesting match, entertaining match. Barcelona needed to get that win after having the knockout gut punch on Thursday against Athletic Bilbao in the Copa del Rey. Real Madrid also losing in the Copa del Rey on Thursday, get a win away at Osasuna, who took an early lead, but just could not hold up against Real Madrid. And for those of us who are Barcelona fans, that was unfortunate. So I want to give a quick little recap here on some stuff that I saw this weekend before we go to break. I've been coaching a 2010 boys team, or a squad. There are actually 2 teams that I coach, but it's one kind of giant squad. They play in a 7v7 format. We've got 16 on the roster, so we typically split them up. And one thing I really enjoy is the fact that we're not playing tournaments at this level, this age, within the club. It's a policy the club started about a year or so ago. We've had the director of coaching on the show before to talk about that and the mentality, and I agree with it. I think it's really been beneficial for the kids to not be going in to get all of their matches out of tournaments. We don't do any. We play friendlies. We play in what they call play dates with a couple matches here, a couple matches there. But what it has done is it's allowed the kids to focus on, they're competing. They're always going to want to win. They're boys, they're girls. They're always going to want to go out and win, and they try. But it's removed some of that negative pressure, and the parents get hyped up when it's tournaments. And yesterday we were playing a series of friendlies in Louisiana, and not yesterday, Saturday, we were playing a series of friendlies in Louisiana against some 2010 teams. And, the field conditions were terrible. Really, really muddy, a lot of rain recently. And then the ground's just naturally wet, kind of in a swampy area. So the field conditions were, when I say less than ideal, that's putting a beauty stamp on the fields. I mean, they just weren't in good condition. Long grass, muddy fields. I felt like, I needed to throw down plywood to walk out on the field to check on players. Otherwise, I was just going to sink into the ground. I mean, it was like that kind of slop. with, long blades of grass on top of it. And one of the things that I like to do with the team, the way that I coach, the way I see the game, what inspires me is Spanish football, and the club is all about that I coach with. They are all about possession-based soccer and players that are creative and creative on the ball and having good technical skill. And so one of the things we've been doing is taking that and continuing to build on that and teaching them ability to succeed at 1v1s and their highlight and show off their technical skills. And we're only a couple weeks into this project of really kind of building and teaching these boys as they are in their last season of 7v7 before they move to 9v9, some of these foundational elements to prepare them for the next step up in terms of field size and number of players are going to be playing in a 9v9 environment, and they really need to start to have an understanding by then of time and space. And so that's one of the things that we're working through is how do we find time and space, and we're using this structure of positional play to enhance their possession and enhance their technical skills and so on and so forth. And so we've been working through that, and I've seen, development and progress. We've had 2 match day weekends in a row, our first 2 of the season, and they've, from a style of play, have gone very well. Last week we had, good run of results. This weekend, the results didn't go the way we wanted. And it was all down to us, dealing with field conditions that were less than ideal. We still having to wrap their heads around the fact they've got to make firmer passes. Something we've been preaching on in training recently is, that the pass has got to be firm. Make sure your teammate has to settle the ball, not just let it roll to their foot and stop. So, we've been working through that to make sure that they're getting the concept that this weekend, that I wholeheartedly agree with that philosophy. We have to teach these young players how to play the game, and the results right now don't matter. And part of the reason we needed to move away from a tournament format was also mistakes were very early on, but we're trying to execute. And the thing that I was really proud of in both weekends is that we were the protagonist. Now, this is not a word you hear a lot in American soccer, the word protagonist, but we dictated the play of the game. We had the majority of the possession. We dictated how the game was going to be played. All of the teams we've played against had to adjust. Some adjustments the week before were that teams simply quit giving effort chasing the ball. They just got tired and they just said, I'm done. This weekend, the teams decided when they realized they couldn't win the ball that they were just going to run and press. And we handled it okay at times, and then at other times we didn't. And our players were also learning different positions. So we were going through a weekly rotation of players who were in positions on the field that they're not normally used to, they weren't really comfortable with. And several asked during the day, hey, can I switch back to an area of the field where I'm more comfortable? And my answer was, not right now. I need you to continue to work to learn. At 9 years old, it's important for these kids to get different pictures of the field, not just get pigeonholed into one place. So maybe they know in their heart of hearts that they want to be a center back, or they want to be a midfielder, they want to be a winger. I also want them to be able to see some of the other roles and responsibilities on the field. They'll at the very least get an appreciation for what their teammates are doing as part of the team when they are trying to perform some of those same tasks. And so, there were areas we were the protagonist, and we didn't lose our composure. We kept trying to play. And we were playing a team that had this one kid that is a Latino kid, and his parents turned to one of our parents, and they started having a conversation about our team. And at the time in this particular match, we were losing. We went on to lose the match, but we were playing really beautiful football. We just made some mistakes in some moments where it cost us, but we were playing really good football. And those parents turned to our set of parents and said, like, man, I really love watching your kids play. I wish my kid was in this environment. Now, think about that for a minute. This kid is on a team that is winning. Now, granted, as I explained to our team, they're winning only because we weren't executing properly in all areas, but they were winning nonetheless. And even these parents could see the difference in the way that we were trying to play versus our opponent. And he really appreciated that. And he could tell that it was all 7 kids on the field working together, and very much that the game. This is a part of American soccer that I think we've got to get better at. We've got to find ways to do what we do better. And focus, especially at our youngest ages, and the ball just would roll like it was on carpet, and they didn't realize the lack of firmness on some of their passes because it really didn't cost them. Whereas this weekend it did. And so they had learning lessons. And the great thing is I talked to the parents throughout the day. We many of us went to dinner after the last match, and to hear the parents talk about their satisfaction in the weekend of going through, some tight matches, couple draws, couple losses, and they were like, this weekend was even better than the weekend before. They could see the progress, even though the field conditions weren't ideal and the referees were less than ideal and the parents of the opponents were crazy and loud. They could see that the kids were not melting. They could see their own players start to really, play cool and collected. Yeah, they made mistakes. Yeah, they had some issues here and there, but they by and large were getting it. And that's what we want to see across the country. You don't have to have the same style of play. You don't have to be a 4-3-3 possession-based team in the same way that every other club in the country is. You could be a 4-3-3 that looks more like a 2-3-2-3. You could be a 4-4. There are footballers, kids who go on the field and they understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just running around and they know how to do a step over, or they know how to do a pullback and turn, or how to make a pass, or how to take a free kick. They need to know why they're doing these things. What is the context? Do they know when it's the right time to take on the 1v1, or do they even have their head up to know that 1v1 really isn't a 1v1, that it's a 2v1, and they could easily play around and through just by being a smarter footballer with better habits? All of these things go into what we should be trying to do to develop the next generation of players, to teach them the game. Style of play isn't as important as teaching your team how to be the protagonist in whatever style that you implement. Teach them how to control matches, how to see out matches, how to look like little miniature footballers compared to the stars they aspire to be on TV. This kind of culture and development and focus on development at the youngest ages are what we see the best countries in the world be able to do. America has gotten so fixated on we're the best league, we're the best DA, we're the best XYZ, doesn't matter. And everything's hyper competitive. Come play for us, pay bakoodles of money to us, etc., etc. And what gets lost is that you go watch these teams and they're not protagonists. They don't understand what they're trying to do. They don't know the why. They don't have a context for the decisions they're making. Typically, the style of play is old, but generally, when it comes to direct play, it's not taught in a footballing context. It's just kick it long and hope my biggest, fastest, strongest runs onto it, and we score. This is the area where I think U.S. Soccer, in looking ahead to the AGM, where U.S. Soccer and all of the youth soccer organizations have got to take a long look in the mirror. What do we want to be as a country? Do we really want to develop and inspire the next generation of footballers? Do we really want soccer players that know what they're doing and why they're doing it? And if we do, and I hope that's the answer we come to, if we do, then maybe we need to do a big rethink on how we do what we do within the U.S. Soccer Federation. Speaking of a rethink, if you didn't this weekend, I'm going to ask you again today on Monday because, sometimes Fridays are slow days. Sometimes it's slow getting back into the groove on a Monday. So today, maybe that's your day. Take a minute, go to ductigbrand.com, DUKTIG brand.com, and use promo code DW Show. You'll get 10% off of your order. If it's a slow day, get you a coaching notebook, find you a journal, get you some coaching cue cards, something you can keep in your pocket, show a kid who maybe they just made a play and it wasn't quite there, and you could show them in that moment, hey, if you just went this way and here's why this would help you, maybe the light turns on for them. They have incredible resources available to help you in that at ductigbrand.com, DUKTIG brand.com, and use promo code DW Show to get 10% off of your order. We'll be right back after this. Hope you've off to a great start to your week. We were talking before the break just about like building a culture of development for the youngest players. What can we do for this next generation of players so that they, really understand context? We don't want to create robots, and we certainly don't want to create robots. But there is a happy medium in my view, and that is that we can teach players the why and the context but we also give them the freedom to do things, and then we teach players what that means. One of the things I love to talk to players about in the context of positional play is a concept of total football. Johan Cruyff, famous for this. The Dutch teams of the 70s were famous for this. And this idea of total football, that if a center back sees space and he takes it and goes on a run, for example, whose job is it to help in the attack? Whose job is it to help in support? We talk through these different things. There are different scenarios of things that we have to take into account. Do we completely unbalance our team in that moment, or do we still try to find balance in other ways? But do we encourage that kind of creativity, that kind of wandering onto the field when space is seen? At the highest levels, teams will use this as a tactic. Maybe there's a center back that does see space and has a knack for going forward, but maybe they lose the ball. Liverpool, Manchester City perform this tactic. They got him far. Watch this moment to pay attention to it. I rewound the DVR to that exact spot, and I said, look, watch. Tell me what you see. And they picked it up instantly as well. There was an obvious advantage that Liverpool felt they had in that moment, in that matchup, in that area of the field, and they exploited it over and over again. The player didn't necessarily do the wrong thing. He did probably what Pep Guardiola had asked him to do. But what they probably didn't count on was what was coming. And in that moment, I felt like Klopp had outclassed Pep in that preparation on that tactic. And that moment plays out in youth soccer matches quite frequently. A player will get the ball, they'll see their space, and they go to take it. Now, some coaches will look at that and they'll just be like, what in the world are you doing? Don't go there. Don't go. And I actually believe that the player on the ball is the one that is the maestro for the moment. And so if he's the maestro for the moment and he sees space and he begins to go, it's not my job to stop him. If he has the space and he can take it and he wins his battles, so be it. What do we do in response? This is to teach the kids how to think the game. No, regardless of your style of play, whether it's a possession-based, positional play, 4-3-3, whatever you set up to do, however you set up to play, you can play however you want to, but are your players thinking the game? And when I say that, it's not just the player on the ball, but stay connected. How do we cover for each other? How do we find freedom to play? How do we enable kids and encourage kids with their creativity to take on challenges? Yes, there are times where there are smarter plays, and we talk about those. Yes, there are times where you need to get your head up and make sure you see the field. And that's when you have the ball, and that's when you don't have the ball. Yes, you have to be thinking at all times. At 9 and 10 years old, are they going to do that well right off the bat? Probably not. But we talk about it. And in those moments where a player like a 4 or a 5, a center back, just takes off, what are we doing to support that? Encourage that. Do we encourage that? Those are questions we have to answer first and foremost before we ever go out to the field to coach. Do we believe? Do we really believe that this is how the game should be played? And if it is, how do we teach that? Whatever that is, whatever your philosophy is. Mine happens to be a philosophy of positional play and total football, as I've mentioned. I love Barcelona. There are things about Liverpool that I love as well under Jurgen Klopp. They weren't the strongest, but they were the best. And I love that football. It inspires me to this day. For me, there's no greater compliment than for an opposing parent or coach to say, man, your teams look like Barcelona. And I know what they mean when they say that. They don't mean the Barcelona under Valverde. They don't even mean the Barcelona under Quique Setien, even though I think Quique is trying to get things turned back in that direction because he believes in that total football philosophy and is a big admirer of Johan Cruyff as well as Pep Guardiola. But I know what they mean by that. They mean that. Now, that is not to say that our kids are able to execute to that level. They're not even able to execute to the level of Barcelona's famous La Masia Academy. But they're learning the game. And for me, that's the key. At 9 and 10 years old, they're learning the game. They're growing in their education. They're understanding context. From my standpoint, when I go into a session, when I'm looking at our players, I'm always trying to find how can we get better? How do I encourage that creativity? How do I find ways for them to understand the decisions before them at any given moment? And I just keep trying to push that forward with our kids, push that forward with our parents to reinforce that. In American youth soccer, when we look at the federation, we've seen generic, we would like teams to play 4-3-3, all the empty slogans, and get to the essence of the actual soccer being played and the development of that soccer player. We're not where we need to be. A country as large as ours, with the biggest sports economy on earth, we should be so much better than we are in producing quality players, having a quality league for the men and the women. We should be so much further in our progression towards reaching a world-class level than we are. For far too long, marketing slogans and empty promises and buzzwords have gotten people paid. And parents are none the wiser. They don't know what they don't know. They just fork out the cash because their neighbor forked out the cash. Their friends fork out the cash. That's what just everybody does. Everybody's doing it. And that is how we've operated within American soccer for so long. Everybody's doing physical gift 15 years who understand the game. And then you watch a Major League Soccer match and players are just running around like they don't have a clue. You see it at the college soccer level. You see it in our development academies. You see it in high schools. This is why I think the federation's got to do a better job in our youth level. We've got to go beyond a marketing slogan, beyond a cookie cutter program. We got to go beyond creating curriculum that produces robots. We've got to create players that can think the game, that love the game, that understand the game, that want to play the game at every chance they get. And not just play it, they understand the actions they're taking, the decisions they're making. They know that if player X does this, I do this. They understand how to cover for a teammate. They understand how to take on attack or go on a 1v1. They understand the game they're playing. We were winning by 1 in the last match. And the opposing coach had already come to the realization before halftime that he was getting the ball. Coming down to the end of the game, we had hit the post several times. We had, 15 shots on goal. I had a kid get played in 1v1 with the goalkeeper, put the goalkeeper on his butt, and then kick the ground and roll the ball out of bounds instead of into the wide open goal. We had multiple chances to bury this game and put it away 10, 15 to 2. I mean, it was that lopsided of a match. But instead, we're only up 1. And this coach was so obsessed with getting a result. And it had been like this all day against these teams. He was so obsessed with the result that he did not even try to play soccer. He did not try to do what they might normally try to do. The result mattered more to him. So he put in a kid and goalkeeper and instructed him that anytime to throw the ball down the field as far as he could throw it. Now, our kids, I was trying to, in the moment, remind them that when we lost the ball and it was at the goalkeeper, that both of our center backs and our midfielder, needed to drop back further than they were used to dropping back, because this kid kept trying to throw the ball over their head. Well, we're late in the match. 2 of the 3 players are not back, and they're not back. Over. My 4 and my 6 drops it in, and I've only got 1 center back there. The other 2 were out of position. And the kid's running back, and he's a fast kid, and he's running back, and he goes to cut the play off. And as he goes to get the ball, the opponent pushes our player down. No call. The kid goes on in to score right at the end of the match. They draw. The opponent's acting like they just won the World Cup. My kids are frustrated. They're like, that was a foul. I'm like, yeah, it was a foul, but, it is what it is. We should have scored the 15 chances we had. In that moment, and something we're going to talk about tonight in training, is what do I do? Now, you might look at that and go, that last player back that was covering properly, he tried to make a play, he got fouled. What else could he do? This is the next level of education, the nuance of the game that we've got to teach our players. Now, you may listen to what I'm about to say and go, dude, that's crazy. Like, what are you doing? If you watch a match and it's the end of a match and you're up and you need, you're the last man. Like, if you don't stop it, which you need to stop, that's your job to stop it before it gets to the goalkeeper. If you're the last man, you have a responsibility, and that is to protect the goalkeeper. So if you're the last man and in that moment and you're trying to win the ball, if you realize that that's not going to happen or that's not going well enough, then you got a responsibility to ensure that player does not get in the box to take the shot off. That might mean a foul. Nothing nasty, nothing egregious. Opposing players may be frustrated. Our parents may not quite understand what just happened, but our players would know that we do everything we can to support our teammates. And in that moment, it might mean a foul. Some of the best players in the world, Messi, for example, yesterday in a match, is going in to score. And a former teammate of his, Marc Bartra, who plays for Real Betis, grabs him and holds his shirt and is pulling him back. It was a clear and obvious penalty, and the referee waved it off. It was absurd. I dealt with some of those calls on Saturday. I get it. You get frustrated. But Bartra in that moment is trying to do everything he can. He got away with it. But he's doing everything he can to stop the player. That's his job. And you might say, well, that you're being too handsy. You're doing this, you're doing that. This is part of the game. This is part of the nuance of the game. And if we go around the world, you find that these players, they know this. They watch their idols. They know the game at 9, 10 years old. They understand what's going on. And we have to get our American players to understand these things so that when they are in difficult moments, they keep their composure. It's not skill they need to develop. It's not one foot that matters. They need both feet to be successful. All of these little things come along the way. It takes time. It takes parental support. It takes familial support. It takes, club support, coaching support, player support. But we can get there. We can get there for sure if we try. Our sponsor this half hour is Charity Water. You can learn more about Charity Water at charitywater.org. They provide clean drinking water to people all over the world, and you can be a part of that story at charitywater.org. Do it today. When you get done with your Ductic brand purchase, you can hop right over to Charity Water. Drop $50, $100 at charitywater.org and be a part of providing people around the world with something they need so much, and that is clean drinking water. Charitywater.org, charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Or you could know that you made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't.
Thanks for watching the show. As always, you can watch on Facebook.com/WRKMN. You can watch at DanielWorkman.com, on Twitter, on YouTube, and now on BegaTV.com. That is a digital soccer channel we've been working on for quite a while. We are just getting the beginning stages of it rolled out. We hope to have more content, shows, etc. coming to you over the spring and going forward. But stay tuned. Check it out at BegaTV.com. We'll have more information up soon about Bega TV and some of the other projects we are working on. As always, you can catch me on Twitter or Instagram at Daniel Workman. Thanks for watching. We'll see everyone again tomorrow. For now, goodbye.